For example, funds till 2 to 3 lakhs are at zero equity. You don't need to
Yeah.
return anything. Do reach out to these government centers at government-backed incubation spaces. I guess there would be 10 or 12 definitely in each and every corner of the city, and they'll take care of all the funding, the initial level funding, and they'll help supporting you with the mentorship. So it's a good thing.
Hi everyone. Today we're here with Mr. Manan Bhatt. Mr. Manan Bhatt has a lot of experience working with startups, and yeah, he and basically like a lot of different companies. Today we're gonna have a great conversation with him. Yeah, do you want to quickly introduce yourself, Manan?
Sure, Navin. So thank you for having me on this session. I'm very excited to share my views and insights. To introduce the audience, hello everyone. My name is Manan, and by profession, I'm a mechanical engineer. But I've been working on the business side of it, and compared to the core technical side, and it's been now 6+ years I've been working on the business side. And I'm working with a Big Four currently, and I look at the various startup engagements and eventually drive business for the firm. So that's the final agenda. And we have certain use cases that the firm comes across at a daily basis, both for its internal usage as well as for for the external clients to whom we are serving. So we try to solve these use cases through external vendors and startups and the whole ecosystem that we have created, and
Yeah.
explore the possibilities of solving these use cases effectively, eventually by lowering the cost for the firm or cost to the company to develop the same product or service that they are looking for, and rather than starting to create it from scratch, we try to fit in those products and services wherever we can solve those particular use cases, not only for us but for our own and the clients also. So to increase the efficiency, productivity at a scale. And past this, I've been worked with many early stage and growth stage startups, and worked with many incubators and accelerators. And I look forward to the exciting session.
So yeah, now we can quickly, I guess, get started with the questions. Do you want to like just give us a quick background because we know that we have a lot of engineers in India, and I'm sure people are interested. Just wanted to hear your story.
Sure. So I would say that it was never a planned option for me, because, as you know, in India, everyone, starts thinking about let's take engineering and then we'll see what else can be explored. And I would say 70 to 73% of folks which, are in their third or fourth years eventually realize that it was not meant for them, or they are looking to explore something new, and, it's not basically made for them. So it all started in my third year basically of my engineering college, and one day I suddenly tend to met up my cousin, and he was working on some interesting stuff during that point of time. He was also a mechanical engineer, but he had also started with sales job, and then he came across an idea of why not to create certain machines which are indigenously developed within India. So I just visited him, and he was working on one big machine. So it was a kind of very fascinating machine for me. Like, I belong to the mechanical engineer domain, and we have been already working hands-on with the different machines. And but that point of time, I had no clue of what that machine actually looked across. It was a desktop level 3D printing that 3D printer he was working across upon. So I was very curious to know more about it and ask certain questions of how it works, and what else it does and what is the output for it. And he was very kind enough to let me through the whole process of what additive manufacturing is, what 3D printing is. And to be honest, I was blown away, because it was never taught to us in our core mechanical engineering what additive manufacturing is in the third year and the fourth year of our engineering. So I
Oh
was
wow.
literally, blown away with all the 3 years of experience which I had learning the core mechanical engineering bit which we studied, and we never came across this the technology, or it was never taught. And I also searched if it would be coming in our fourth year of college, but it was never on the books for us. Then I, visited more often to him, and it was like a close relationship. And then he offered that we are just starting with it, and we are looking to form a company,
Mhm.
so it would be great for you to, join when currently as I was in my third year. So it would be a good exposure for me also to learn, understand more about how, the technology works, and more about the business side of it, how the operations have been done. So it was
Yeah.
a good learning curve. Then I, joined as an intern, and I was the first employee over there. And it was a kind of very close, relationship. And I was like, why not to join this opportunity? And it all started post, college. And then an interesting thing came up in our fourth year of college. I still remember we got a subject called entrepreneurship. So it was, very fascinating to study about it. And but at that point of time, I was thinking, how can entrepreneurship be taught through this, bookish knowledge, or how there can be a book on it to go through it? But it was just a normal thing during that point of time, because no one from the college days used to know the fancy term what entrepreneurship actually is, and what does an entrepreneur do, or founder do, because it was kind of very niche to work on your own startup during that, like a decade ago. Now it's a very fancy thing given the shows around it, and certain things on the web which you come across daily. But during that point of time, it was kind of a very new and a niche thing to leave your job, corporate well-paid job, and to start your own venture. Then from that point I just started interning with them. And the one thing that I came across was, he told me that there would be no money initially, because we'd be growing together, and you won't be getting paid compared to if you take a job. So it's your call if you want to still work with us and grow with us. But there will be definitely so much of exposure for you to grow, and it will be a lifetime of experience. You also mentioned that it will not be like will be an overnight success, and there will be lots of grinding and hustling that we'll be going through. So if you are ready to be a part of it, definitely you're most welcome. And then I joined post my internship with them, and then initially formed the company, and then it all started from there.
Oh wow. Yeah, thanks, Manan. Yeah, I think you hit on so many different points, such as education not being taught, like whether entrepreneurship. I mean, sorry, whether entrepreneurship is not being taught, whether it can even be taught, like in a textbook setting and all the experiences. So yeah, I think it's great.
Over the years working with different startups, what were some of the crucial lessons that you learned in your involvement with both new startups as well as mature startups?
That's a good question. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a marathon kind of a thing. It's a never-ending process, and it's a long learning curve. Every day you tend to learn so many new things, and which one never taught to you before. So you are the decision makers, and everything revolves around how good you take the decision is, irrespective of what the outcome is. So you experiment, you fail, you learn, you grow eventually, right? And the motto which the thing which I learned while working with the ecosystem is learn fast, fail fast. So taking risk while you are young is always, invaluable. You have so much of time in your plate, and to, learn, experiment with so many things, take some more risk, try to push it, you know, make good network, because network is definitely net worth while you'll be working with so many folks and so many individuals around you. And at the same point of time, it also, increases your inner capabilities of what you are as a human being. And because you try to push yourself out of the comfort zone. And you should definitely involve good mentors, because mentors are always an important aspect when you are trying to build something. Mentors and coaches, and definitely to understand your initial goals, why you started this, understand your audience, what value you are creating for your audience, and definitely working on the quality of product. And the last thing is always the maybe to under promise and over deliver.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Yeah, man, yeah, like just to get your LinkedIn, like you've been part of so many different, I guess, startups and projects. Do you want to like tell us about one of the particular startups or like the projects that you were part of that you're proud of? Why, like you were, proud of partnering with them? What you learned?
Sure. So I've been a part of copious startups throughout the journey, but as I mentioned, the Stardust, which we eventually worked upon, and due to some limitation, and due to some the match of the time that we operated in, because we were too early to fit into the Indian ecosystem, because there was a point where it was the 3D printing or the additive manufacturing was accepted, but it was not adopted. Right, so that's a good difference between the accessibility and the adaptivity. It should be, that the client should adopt to it, and through which there should be a recurrence of all the services or the products that we've been offering. The second startup is a good example of my journey as well as the startup which is currently doing good. It's called Torchit Electronics. It also was showcased in the Shark Tank season one. It is manufacturing certain assistive device, AI-led assistive devices for people with various disabilities. So it was a good learning curve for me also to work with Honey, the founder of Torchit, and it was through my networking which I met him during certain events and stuff, and then we eventually work on the business development side of it.
Since your focus is mainly on incorporating stakeholder management and also the technology aspect of startup development, I just want you to maybe elaborate on those 2 points and also share an example of when you have used the strategies and how it had helped a startup grow.
Sure. So stakeholder management is one of the crucial aspects while you are working with any of the startup, give it your professional life or a personal life. So it's been divided into two different aspects. The first aspect is of catering to stakeholder mapping. So you need to map all of your stakeholders which are involved, directly or indirectly with the project that you've been working with, and what's their role in it, and at what capacity they would be helping you in this, whether in a direct way or indirect way. And then the other part is once you map those stakeholders, once you know what are clear cut that these are my stakeholders which whom I'll be working with throughout my project life cycle. It can be your investors, it can be your vendors, or it can be any of the one he or she who is helping you with that particular project, whether it's just from a technology part or just delivering the as a stakeholder, right? So the individuals that you choose as your stakeholders, and then you map your stakeholders. The whole exercise has been carried out, and then the crucial aspect too is how you manage those stakeholders. It involves a clear communication with them, managing expectations. What are the expectations that you come across in your daily life with all the stakeholders that you've been dealing with, whether it's been investors, whether it's been a vendor or a client that you've been working with, and then you build strong relationships with all these stakeholders and you keep them in loop, and you keep on communicating and keeping a track of all the records and the communication that you did with them. So the best example which I can give from my learnings is with while working with the Torchit a couple of years ago. So we had a very good investor on board, and he was one of our prominent stakeholder because he had invested a good amount of money in our venture. So it was a crucial thing for us also to keep in communicated and loop in every small and each and every communication that was going through our end, and what are the potential things, the roadmap, and what are the future things that we've been planning with. And at the same point of time, it's always a two-way communication that leads to a good strategy that you have been working with. There are certain inputs that you get from your stakeholders on how to improve those particular things, whether it's an investor or a vendor or a client. So you should be able to track what's currently happening with the stakeholders, and they should always be involved in smallest of the smallest communication that goes out from your end, because it's always important. They have already shown trust in you while investing in your ventures. It's always a good habit. As a good habit, you should always keep them involved and ask them for the next step whenever you're stuck.
Yeah, yeah, sounds good. I guess from your experience, where do I guess startups make mistakes in terms of stakeholder communication or management relationships? Do you find yourself giving this like certain type of advice to many startups because I know you have experience with that?
Yeah, so the usually what is the trend is, if I'm working on something which is very close to me, so what they tend to feel is there is I am unstoppable, or is what I'm currently developing is the best thing in the market. There are
Yeah,
no external validations which the folks and that's the normal human nature that it revolves around, that what I'll be doing, it will be best for me without getting into more of the output part of it. But in it's always a rosy picture if you think from your particular lens. So it's always important from a stakeholder management that you go towards an external validation which gives you another perspective of you're looking towards your end goal or how you'll be reaching out to them, because it gives it provides you with some good amount of feedback. And feedback is definitely one of the most important thing to validate, are you doing something right or wrong, or what are the possibilities of attaching a risk to it towards a long-term agenda. So it's always important for folks who are just starting up to respect their stakeholders at any cost and just not believe in the what because they tend to believe that what I'm doing is always would be the best. So it's
True.
always important to involve certain stakeholders who can figure it out.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess like yeah, have a follow up to that. How do you choose your stakeholders? Because there are so many people, there are so many investors who have so much money. Like, who do you know? I guess is right for you as a startup.
If we talk about investors, so there is a due diligence process which takes up before signing a deal.
Yeah,
So it should always not be limited to one side. The due diligence should be also be there from the founder's side, right? It should
yeah,
not just be limited that the investor is vetting your startup or it's looking for certain red flags or green flags to it. The founder is also responsible for taking the due diligence of the investors, right? Because as I mentioned, it's a long-term engagement. It's a kind of a marriage, right? It should not be just limited to certain amount of thing that the investor is just looking to put piles of money to it and then he needs a good exit. And the
yeah,
investor at the same point of time should also understand that it's an early stage startup and it should be they should be open to provide their network with the startup. So those who are asking for money to help or support during initial days, it's certainly a red flag. And you should not involve those particular kind of stakeholders that they say that you give us money, we will help you with this. So you just do your own research and your own analysis. You will be definitely finding more folks who will be able to support you and guide you through your network. Be part of certain networking events eventually while you communicate with them, while you are working with them. While you start working with someone, you understand what are their core how good or how bad they are and how good they will be helping me with this, because for you it's your primary objective to run your startup. For someone else it will be a secondary thing. So they will all not be able to focus on it every point of time, and you should also respect that. But you should focus on someone who is bringing more value to the table compared to
okay,
one who is just speaking about that we can help you with this and this. So it's eventually you go to the market, you start networking, you realize that there are folks and there are certain communities which are built in the entrepreneurship domain right now. So in the past 10 years there are certain good communities which are building across, and they do such workshops for free, and you can be part of those events and workshops and tend to learn more about the journeys of people whom you can reach out to, and they're always reachable while you work. It's just a matter of time while you been build certain relationship with them.
sounds good. Yeah,
So when it comes to startups or like the startup owner, they will have to give up a part of their ownership when they are looking to grow for resources or for finance purposes. So do you have conversations like this with startup owners? What advice do you give them in these kinds of conversations where you have to talk to them about giving up a part of their ownership?
So it's always a tough conversation to have when you are liquidating your own equity. Like you had 100% of them when you started initially, you need to give certain amount or liquidate to your co-founders or give it to your investors. But it's always the part of the longer term engagement and the longer term game, because eventually when you are growing up, you need some external validation plus external funding to grow and get people on board, get good talent on board. So that's always the case. They are the toughest conversation, to be very honest, because you are speaking about diluting your own equity and giving to someone else, because you are also not aware of what the results or what the output would be at the end. So you need to choose those particular investors or stakeholders that you have been working with very wisely. At the same point of time, also understand that you cannot go alone or go solo towards the end goal that you've been working with. There will be certain resources, there will be certain experts and coaches and people which are doing good compared to you, that needs to be honored and needs to be respected and give through whom your guidance, because the guidance is more important rather than just giving the equity. Because the scale which you can achieve while giving those equity or those shares or ESOPs to them is always good to have them on their side rather than just going solo or a mindset of you can do anything and everything at your own. it's always the part of the game. And once you get a good exit, you will be getting back the equity, so you can dilute it accordingly. Speaking about is it's a very easy thing for us, but when you have to manage all the stakeholders, there are certain pressure of getting it things delivered to your clients, to your investors, to your there are certain family pressures when you're also working on certain important things. So we should consider all those aspects of it, and building a strong base for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
We also know that you work with the startup I mean, the Smart India Hackathon. And so, could you, like, for people who don't know, could you maybe explain a little bit about the concept of the Smart India Hackathon and how it contributes to innovation?
Sure. So Smart India Hackathon is one of the flagship initiatives of Government of India, and it all started, I guess, in the year 20, and the initiative was to help various organizations and corporates to get the solutions to their existing pressing problems that they came across on the day-to-day basis, and try to solve and eliminate those use cases, try to solve through the external, through students. It can be through student innovators, or it can be people or students which are working currently as a young professionals, or currently you have just passed out the colleges, or currently are in colleges. So it encourages the innovation among young minds. It provides a practical exposure to the problem solving things, and it also fosters collaboration between the students, the corporates, and the organizations. So yeah, that's it all about. And I was part of the, as a jury, I was part back in 2022, I guess, where I was working with them as a jury member for their hardware edition. So they have two editions to it. One is the software edition, the other one is the hardware edition. So there were around 3,600 plus use cases which are provided by the government organizations to solve those use cases through these innovators and the teams are exchanged. Like a Gujarat team will go to Tamil Nadu, and the Tamil Nadu team will come across to Gujarat, or the states have been exchanged, and then they have been provided with certain raw materials and stuff in the hardware edition. And to my surprise, it was a totally a great experience while observing these young kids. Like when we are 15 or 18, we eventually didn't know what we want to do in life, right? But because these folks at such young age are doing so much of wonders, their clarity, their thought process is, it's on point, because they know what the output will be when I change the input, or what can else can be done, where I need the support, where this come up with certain innovative solutions. They were working till 3 or 4 in the morning, and it's just not limited to win the prize. It was also about solving the use case for those particular entity which had provided the use case. The price was always secondary to them when we speak about to them that what they will be doing with the prize if they win. So the answer would always be that, sir, we are not over here to win the prize. We are just here to solve the use case, and we believe that our technology or innovation could solve many lives. Right. So government is also taking this initiative seriously, and its government is, I would like to address one more point over here. It's very smart, right? Because you need to cater the each and every child which is working in schools at a school level or at a college level. So they are also coming up with a kind of a network where each student can come up with certain solution if they require any support from other school or other state. So it creates a kind of an environment where a student from Tamil Nadu or say Maharashtra can come up to Gujarat and ask for help, and the student gets support from the local representative in the schools. And it's always a good channel of optimization that the government does while working on the Smart India Hackathon, because it's a nationwide initiative.
Oh yeah, totally. The initiative sounds really good because I feel like so many students get this opportunity to, I guess, work with um, lots of mentors and get lots of advice. And I think, like you said, it's almost like creating this ecosystem. Because me personally, I usually don't think of the government actively being involved with startups. I think this is a good example of how governments can actually, be a part of
Yeah,
this.
so there are state startup rankings and rankings across India, which takes place every 2 years, and which are the states which are performing good from the GDP perspective. Then number of startups, what are the inputs provided to them, what are the mentorship provided to them, and what are the investment which has been raised in that particular tenure. So all of these are currently being mapped, and there are certain prizes and things which have been offered to the stakeholders and to the organizations which are doing such good work towards entrepreneurship. For example, funds till 2 to 3 lakhs are at zero equity. You don't need to
Yeah,
return anything, right? So it's a good thing when you're starting up. Do reach out to these government centers, that government-backed incubation spaces. I guess there would be 10 or 12 definitely in each and every corner of the city, and they'll take care of all the funding, the initial level funding, and they will help supporting you with the mentorship. So that's a good part when you initially get 2 to 3 lakhs to just start with a good POC at a zero cost. So it's a good thing.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. In terms of value creation, where do you predict India stands? I guess is it mostly going to be in, I guess, decarbonization or electric vehicles, or what? I guess where would you advise startups to like focus?
So I guess the current trend in India, when you say, is divided in two different parts. The one is the deep tech or the disruption part of it, and the other one is when you start focusing on certain sustainable solutions. When I say about deep tech, it refers to startup which are leveraging complex technologies like generative AI is one of the booming technologies. And when we say generative AI, it's not limited to the venture or the small startups which are working on it. It's the large corporations for us also to believe in that, and scout for certain solution which can chip into our existing use cases, and where there can be possibilities of doing partnerships and collaborations. Then blockchain and quantum computing is always a major threshold from the India perspective. And there are certain good things which are always happening around. When we say about AI, there are certain AI-led drug discoveries. When we say about healthcare and pharma, and the other thing is definitely the sustainable solutioning of it. The other part of it, there is always a growing urgency to address climate change and environmental issues. So these ventures are also potential to create positive impact while being profitable, which is a powerful combination of tech plus creating impact which caters to the social needs.
Yep, yep, that makes sense.
I remember reading this on your LinkedIn profile. Exact line that you used was, "You're a relentless optimist who believes there
Correct.
is no failure, only feedback." Could you talk to us a little bit about that and your philosophy around that?
Correct. So it's always about feedback that you take for either of your colleagues or your stakeholders or your clients. So be always optimistic about the things that you've been working with, and stay positive in whatever the situation is, because tomorrow it may change, day after tomorrow it may change, and everyone is not around you, because there are certain founders who tend to think that these investors are currently with me. What if when they get a good exit, they will move on. So that's the part of the game. You need to realize that everyone will not be with you together, because it's eventually your goal and your baby, and it's eventually your property that you have been working with. You cannot think that those particular folks that joined initially would be there until I close this project, because it's a never-ending project. So
Yeah,
the decision you need to make is from your lens and from your understanding. So yeah, that would be my learning and my consideration while speaking about setbacks. And there will be always certain setbacks, irrespective of your business. There will be certain limitations that you go across, and there will be certain findings that you go while you work with your own venture, right? While you are working with your own development, you feel across that you start losing everything. There is the less respect that you get while you work on your own thing, rather than getting or catering to a 20 or 25 lakh salary. You start working on something which is you know which is kind of, you own that piece, right? So it's always certain decisions that needs to be taken from a mental well-being side. Emotions can be kept aside for a while, and the gut feeling that you have been having, that needs to be addressed while you're working or taking certain decisions.
yeah, 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 that makes sense. Yeah. Let's end with a fun question, Manan. What motivates you to get out of bed every day?
So it's always about, for me, it's always about solving the use cases that my firm already has, and to scout and talk with the entrepreneurs that they have been, that they are providing such solutions or such products to the offering. And the thing which excites me at a daily basis is where I can identify the gap, where exactly is the gap in the process, and how I can solve the gap, and what methodologies or what strategies. So basically, strategy building is one of the part I would like to address. So it's very crucial. Like you need to bridge both the gaps. The firm's use cases needs to be solved at the same point of time. The startup needs to be addressed. So it's always about fixing the gap, which excites me daily basis.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Yeah, thanks so much, Manan, for joining us on this podcast. I'm sure the viewers are going to learn so much about startups and your experiences and all your advice. And yeah, everything was really valuable. And yeah, thanks so much for joining us today.